to International Wealth Builders Radio, sponsored by Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley, today. Normally, you'll catch me on Building Solid Foundations right here on KCAA on Thursdays at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We are on 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM over most of Southern California. You can also catch a show if you miss it on the radio station's website, or we are on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and on the Android. Just download the Building Solid Foundations app on your Google Play Store, or you can catch us on your favorite podcast platform. So, International Wealth Builders Association, I was invited today to guest host, and what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a real estate investing 101 with a fire hose approach. We're going to go through a lot of stuff today. What I want to talk to you today about is different types of real estate investments that you can get into. There's the beginner level, or the typical stuff we all kind of know. There's a lot of seminars and books and stuff out there to get you started on that. Then there's more advanced people that step up into something a little higher level. And then there's the expert level, which is more the big stuff that tends to be done more by large REITs and corporations and those type of things. And we're going to walk through those and figure out, is there a way that you can leapfrog over some of those smaller ones and get involved in some of the larger projects without being one of those big multinational developers. Quick background on myself. I was a general building contractor doing mostly custom high-end residential. I worked as an agency construction manager that is basically a hired gun manager who doesn't design, engineer, or build a thing, but just acts as the manager for the owner, both public and private owners. I have done litigation support, expert witness type stuff. I was the vice president of a production home builder for a while. I have owned two companies in this business. One, I started back in the early 2000, 2001. That ran for about 10 years. And then I formed a company with actually partners that I'd worked with during that time. We formed Coast to Coast Equities about 5 years ago. I also own Building Solid Foundations, which is the communications training and leadership development company. So that's a little bit of my background. And just to give you a little taste of what that means, in just myself, not including my partners or the companies I've worked with, I've had over 1,700 acres of land pass through my hands, just under 4,000 home sites that were approved, 261 actual homes that I oversaw construction on, about 2,300 multifamily units, over 10 million square feet of commercial, over 1 million square foot of not parking lot, but parking structures that I've overseen, $153 million of land projects, about $450 million of commercial construction, about $100 million of homes that are built, and about $250 million of infrastructure. So over $1 billion of total construction and development background. So I give you that. It's not bragging. It's more just to let you know that while I certainly don't know everything, I know a little bit about the business, and I'd like to share a little bit with what I've learned with you today. So what I'm going to start with is kind of go through what are the typical real estate investments out there. What are the things that most people are kind of familiar with, and what people get into. And I'm going to start by telling you, if you are interested in getting into this game, or if you've got into it recently and you're not sure where to go next, or you're struggling to figure out where can I find the expertise, where can I find money, where do I go to find properties? If you have a real estate investor network or real estate investor association near you, I would recommend getting connected with those people. Now, make sure that they're a legit real estate investor association. There are a lot of meetup groups out there that are really not that. They are out there, I guess they do site visits and things. What they're really doing is trying to get you involved in only their particular stuff, and they're not teaching you what else is out there. A real estate investor association has all types of different projects available because all kinds of people are in there. So I'm going to walk through some of the projects that are represented at some of the associations, and just I guess a quick plug for some of them. I'm on the board of San Diego Creative Investors Association. That's a nonprofit group. It is, I think, the oldest of the investor associations in San Diego County. I'm not sure of that. I know that I attended their meetings back in 2000 when I didn't even live in San Diego yet, and actually met my first investor through that association, who is still with us 20 plus years later. That investor is still investing in our projects, except there's just more zeros on the checks that they invest with us now. So they meet in Mission Bay area of San Diego on the second Tuesdays of every month. And again, we're in Southern California, so that's the area I know very well. And I work mostly in San Diego, Riverside County areas of California, and I also work in Florida, Texas, Arizona right now, and I'm looking at the states. So another club, there's a North San Diego Real Estate Investor Association. They're meeting online currently. I think they do once a quarter in person at the Stone Brewing up in Escondido. You'll want to check. You can Google them and find out. Just North San Diego Real Estate Investor Association. And then there is a group called San Diego Impact Real Estate Investor Network. They also meet in the Mission Bay area on the third Wednesdays every month. Smaller than the other groups, but I would say the cross section of attendees tends to be a little more serious. There's Private Lending Masters. They meet online on the last Thursday of every month, and that's a club of investors that are learning how to use their IRAs and self-directed HSAs and those type of things to become the bank. To actually, they don't have to get money from somewhere else. They're earning the money they already have. So that's another group. There's literally tons of them. There's Riverside County, Orange County. There's Orange County Real Estate Investor Association. I'm not sure if they're meeting online or on ground. They used to meet in Costa Mesa. There's the LA Real Estate Investor Association that's run by actually a gentleman who ran the San Diego group for 20 some odd years. They're currently meeting online. They have very large attendance across the country and excellent speakers that come in and talk. So get yourself connected to those kind of people. You need to learn what's going on. So let's talk about some of the basic, the typical real estate investments that we're all familiar with. Most people understand from watching TV and other things, the concept of a fix and flip, which is where we buy hopefully an undervalued property, and then we do some kind of a rehab, fix, repair, addition, something like that, add value to it, either with square footage or upgrading it. And then we sell that when we're done with it. And that means we have to go find the land, borrow the money to both get the land and to do the rehab. We do all the heavy work, and then we try to sell it at a good profit. I will tell you, if you want to do those, don't follow what they do on TV. That's entertainment. Okay, so just understand that. Go talk to people that have actually done it, and you'll find there's more to it than what you see on TV. And what you see on TV, again, it's entertainment. I don't know how accurate or real it really is. Then you can also do the same thing, but instead of selling it when you're done, you can rent it out. You keep it and hold on to it, property manage it, and you're getting cash flow from the rentals now. And now your renters are buying it for you. Keep it, which means you'll see appreciation on that over time. Appreciation is great because that's money that could be used for income without tax if you're in 1031 exchanges to upgrade, or if you're using cash out refis to get money out of it. Obviously, if you sell it, there's capital, long-term capital gains on that. You could simply buy a piece of land that doesn't need any fixing and just rent it out. You can buy your own house, live in it for a while, do some upgrades, and then move out and reap the profit of it. There you can buy duplexes, little duplexes or fourplexes, live in one and rent the others out. So these are basic real estate transactions or investment types that are out there. And I started in the business accidentally doing that just because I bought a house. It was a dump. I fixed it up and I planned on living there. And then I got a job transfer. This is back in the 90s. And so it turned out that I turned it over in about 10 months and doubled my money on it. But I had not intended to do that. I intended to live there for a long time, but it worked because I needed that money to go then buy a home in a more expensive market where I got transferred. The upside of this is pretty simple. Trying to get money for this, there's banks, there's private lenders, there's hard money lenders out there that understand this, and it's fairly easy to get into it because we know what it is. We understand what it is. Your residence can double as an investment vehicle to do this, either living in a house while you fix it and then selling it over, or living in a house while you fix it and then renting it and you move out and get another one. Or perhaps, let's say if you're in the military, you can buy a home in each duty station, live in it while you're there, and then rent it when you leave. So it's pretty easy to do this as your residence becomes an investment vehicle. It's easily understood by most people, and there's a lot of help around for these things. You got to pay for some of it, but there's a lot of help around: books, articles, magazines, consultants, training, workshops, all kinds of stuff. The problems, of course, are market cycle and timing. So if you buy in and your plan is to rent something and you happen to be buying right when everything drops in that area, let's say the major employer leaves or whatever happens, then you could be exposed not being able to have a renter in there, and now you've got a problem servicing the debt on that without having a renter. So you could be subject to market cycle issues, depending, and debt's going to be a big part of playing into that. So risk, there's that risk. There's also lack of capital. A lot of people just don't have money. And so you have to learn how to find money somewhere. This is where these investor associations come in really handy, and connections. Where do I find the money to invest in these things? Lack of expertise. I don't know anything about real estate. I don't know about finance. I don't know about construction. Again, you have to partner with people that know that, or go learn it yourself through YouTube and LinkedIn Learning and books, wherever you can get. And then there's the problem that most people are working a so-called real job while they're trying to do this, if this is their plan to build up a real estate portfolio. And your clock is ticking on your loans all the time. So every minute you have money out, you're paying on that money. So if you get delays in permits, you can't get supplies, which is a problem lately, or trying to balance how long it takes to do that with your real job that you've got to put in your 40, 50, 60 hours a week on, that can be some of the issues with it. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'm going to move to the next level, which is more advanced type real estate transactions, and we'll talk through what those look like. I'm Steve Matley. This is International Wealth Builders Radio, sponsored by Real Men of Real Estate on KCAA. We'll be right back after this.
The most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services, including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
The toughest part in the lending process is patience. Like I tell all my clients, once you get those keys in hand, it'll all be worth it.
Everything that they said they were going to do, they did. I saved so much money working with First Lending Solutions. I love my new house. I couldn't be happier.
So reach out to me at First Lending Solutions so I can help you get started.
You can contact Defina Miller with First Lending Solutions at 951-973-0123, definamillermortgage.com.
I love how New School is able to help me greatly with my career,
because they actually have experience working in the field. The greatest thing about New School is the fact that there are so many different disciplines, which allows you to really understand and get a good insight into different types of design. And I think it's that whole changing mindset of what design can really do for a city, and this is kind of the place to be.
This environment cultivates creative thinking.
Real Men of Real Estate with Steve Matley, construction manager and real estate developer, business owner, and educator.
Did you know that right now there's 22,000 units deficit?
Tunde Ogunwale, real estate development professional, Naval Academy grad, and veteran with a deep understanding of the public sector process.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Brian Fox, real estate expert and investor, dedicated to helping hundreds of clients make money in real estate every year.
There's so much housing going in.
The builders are begging for more land.
Future company can come in, lease up space to employ those people who are living in the homes.
We have to put the housing in place.
We either have to have houses.
They want to make sure that there's a strong employment.
Logistics centers, things like information hubs. We are a shipping economy now. There's economies all over the country where their prices are doubling and tripling.
Welcome back to International Wealth Builders Association Radio, sponsored by Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today, we're talking about different types of real estate investing. Before the break, we talked about the more typical or normal real estate investing projects that we're all familiar with. And I want to talk real quick before we move into the advanced type. There's a question that comes up. Is it better to do a flip or a hold? And if you're not familiar with what that term means, a flip is when you buy something, you do something to add value to it. You buy a house, you buy a piece of land, you buy an apartment building, you do something to add value. You fix it, you expand it, you put more square footage into it, you repair it, upgrade it, whatever you do. And then it becomes worth more, and then you sell it off for that higher value. Again, we see this on the TV shows with the fixer flop or whatever they call it, those kind of shows where they try to buy something, do a repair on it, and then sell it and make a profit on doing that. So it's usually a fairly good return, a larger return in a fairly short amount of time. Could be under a year, it could be maybe 2 to 3 years. That would still, in my mind, still be a flip. A hold is where you're holding on to something for a longer term. You're buying it for the appreciation or maybe the cash flow. So you're buying something and you're hoping to get the rental cash flow out of it every month. So you put the money into it and you're hoping to get, let's say 7, 8, 9% return on your investment on an annual basis through the rents that you collect. And you have to actively property management or hire that out to someone else. And you'll also maybe hold on to something to get long-term appreciation. If you bought a house in 1998 and you still owned it today, you would sell that house and likely have 2 to 3 times as much value in there, and that would be your profit, but you held it for a while. So the idea is, do you do a flip or do you do a hold? And there's all these discussions. I say the answer is yes, you need to do both. If you have the ability, the skill set to do a flip, you can buy something and do the upgrades and turn it over. You have access to the money. You can make money pretty quickly, and the market is still accelerating and do that. The flip doesn't really work in a declining market because you could buy something, put money into it, and if it is reducing in value because the market is going down, you can't put enough value in it to get your money back out of it. You'd be stuck on it, and you'd have a hold whether you wanted to or not, or you'd lose it if you weren't prepared to service that debt. So it works in an expanding market. Holds tend to work in any kind of market. There's appreciation long term, but because there's rental income, the key there is the way holds don't work if you're doing rentals is if you can't get a renter in, if you have a vacancy in a market and you have to service a debt on it. So that would be the only considerations there. So I highly advocate people do both, and you can't do them all at once, but have a strategy to work with that. Maybe you make some money using the flips and then use that money to buy some long-term hold that you'll hold on to. Okay, so moving on into the more advanced type of real estate transactions. So advanced real estate transactions are very similar to the typical, they're just bigger and it takes more money. And a lot of people don't know they can do these. So this would be where instead of buying a single house, you're buying a multifamily. Now I'm not talking a high rise in an urban area with 60 floors of apartments. I'm talking probably something in 4 to 10 units. So nothing major, but also bigger than a duplex, triplex type of thing. So probably something at minimum of 4. That 4 is where you go, is the last level of residential before you move to commercial. 5 is commercial. So you want to either buy one of those and do what they call value add, which is where you buy one, fix it up, make it better, and then you can increase the rents and you can hold on to that. You can justify higher rents if you make it a nicer building. You go from a kind of a dump to something that's pretty nice to live in. You can also do that where you sell it off. You can buy a building that's highly vacant, do what you need to fix it up, make it more attractive, fill it with tenants, and then sell the fully letted building out for a lot more money than you bought the most empty. You can do this with like commercial property as well. You can do there's business condos and business parks. Buy those, buy units in business parks. You can do a small strip mall or a small commercial building on a main street somewhere, and put a tenant in there, do the fix-its, lease it out to a business enterprise. You can do individual houses, buy a piece of land and build what's called a spec home on there, and sell the house to someone. And it's not a custom home. Custom home means the owner hired you to build their house. In this case, you buy the land, you get the home design, you build it, and then you sell it to an end customer. You're selling a product. You could do the same thing by, say, doing a lot split. I buy a piece of land and I look on the zoning, and this lot can be broken into 3 lots. So now I do a lot split, and I can live in one and sell the other 2 off. I could build on the other 2 lots. I could sell all 3 of them off. So I can do different things on there. I can also do things like ADUs. ADUs I would actually classify more in the typical nowadays, because it's becoming more common. It used to be something that not that many people knew about, but it's almost becoming a trend now. And the laws have changed to make it a lot easier if you're in places like California that want to see more density in urban areas and the semi-urban areas. So what you can do with the ADUs now is build in the backyard existing home if it's in an area that's a transit corridor, half a mile of light rail or a bus or something like that. So you can also do some note investing. Note investing is where you become the bank. You buy someone's mortgage, and they pay you instead of paying the bank. And I don't know if you even knew you could do that, but there are some people out there that can help you understand how to buy notes that people are paying on and how to buy notes that people aren't paying on. What's the advantage and disadvantage of both? I'm not going to go into that in this show. There actually is one of our fellow hosts on Real Men of Real Estate, Patrick, talks about that on a regular basis. So tune in for that. So those are more advanced real estate. Now, the upside to this is, in most of these cases, you don't need any special licenses, degrees, certificates, or specialty knowledge. You need to learn how to do it, but you don't need to go get a degree or pass an arduous test like you would to be an accountant, architect, an attorney, or something like that. Now, I will say this: if you're building homes, there's a limited number of homes you can build every year. There's a certain threshold, but once you cross that, you need to have a license to build, because now you're considered a professional builder. But as an individual person, I think you can do 4 or 5 years. I would check on that. And you can still make your residence double as an investment vehicle by living in a place where you rent out. So let's say you have a 10-unit building, you live in one of those units, and that's where you property manage from, and the other 9 units rent out. It's still mostly understood. There's some things like notes that confuse people, and some of the lot split things that get a little tricky, but for the most part, most people kind of understand the idea of most of this stuff. It's just bigger than the typical stuff. And there's a lot of people out here that can help you with this stuff, and you get better returns. There's more leverage than your typical real estate investments. On the other side, all the risks that we kind of talked about with the typical stuff, meaning there's the market issue, there's the lack of capital, lack of expertise, and lack of time. Just put an exponent on that risk, because these are bigger projects, and the bigger they are, the more you can lose. So that means you have to, again, my solution is to learn what I can and then partner with people that are smarter than I am. So the real difference between the typical stuff and when you get it, and some of the advanced stuff, and then when you get into the more advanced and what I call the expert level stuff, the difference is you go from emotions to logic when you're doing your purchasing. And I know that sounds strange. We all think we're always doing a fixing something on a house and get it logically with a spreadsheet. Yes and no. The reason that becomes very popular on television is because it is emotional. Television plays to our emotions. If there was no emotion, it wouldn't work. So we love the interior design. We love the lot. People want to buy houses because of that great master bedroom, the kitchen, the entertaining area, the backyard, the school district it's in. All those things, that's what we envision, and then that's an emotional decision. Most of your residential real estate is bought emotionally, even though we tell ourselves it's logically. When you get into very advanced level or expert level type investments, it really is spreadsheet driven. We've done projects where I really liked the project, land, the location, when we didn't do them because it just pencil. It is driven by profit and loss, period. And it takes a lot of emotion out of the deal. So that's one of your biggest differences. So let's get into some expert level. Expert level is doing things on, say, large multifamily projects. I'm talking urban high rises. I'm talking mid-rise and high rise. I'm talking about large apartment communities where you have a large swath of land with, say, 24 3-story walk-up apartment buildings that each have 12 to 15 units in them. So it's a large complex. Maybe there's 20 in each of those. You can do commercial. This is strip malls, large retail, industrial. You can get into distribution centers, manufacturing areas, larger stuff. You're talking, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on these things. You can acquire and entitle land and sell it. I'm going to talk to you about that in the next segment. You can develop the land. Developing means get it ready for the buildings, the utilities and the sidewalks and the street lights and all the stuff you got to put in to get ready, pad everything up, get ready for the buildings. You can do production homes. Production homes is kind of like spec homes, but you're building, say, 200 at a time. So you do it in phases. Maybe you do 20 at a time in phases until you build out a tract of 200, 300 homes. Think of your larger builders, KD, Lennar, DR Horton. There is larger commercial stuff. I mentioned like the tilt-up buildings and the distribution centers and those type of things. You can do master plan communities or what they call PUDs. You can do tenant improvements or build-to-suits in commercial, where you take empty commercial buildings someone else built the shell in and you put all the interiors in for the tenants, and you're going to manage those things and property manage those things. So think of the larger companies out there, like Irvine Company in Southern California. Those kind of companies get into this stuff, and I've done some of those both on the high rise and on the production track level. And the upside to this is there's a lot of money you can make in this, real big money. 6-7 figure incomes are pretty easy on this stuff. It's very highly leveraged in a lot of cases, which gives you very high ROIs. When we get back in the break, I'll kind of give you some comparative on ROIs and some of this stuff that are typical. And then you can create a sustainable portfolio, and you can create a real business out of this. Now, there are some downsides that I'm going to get to after the break. I got to take a short break, and we'll be right back on International Wealth Builders Association Radio by Real Men of Real Estate.
FireUp Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. FireUp Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services, including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. FireUp Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
The toughest part in the lending process is patience. Like I tell all my clients, once you get those keys in hand, it'll all be worth it.
Everything that they said they were going to do, they did. I saved so much money working with First Lending Solutions. I love my new house. I couldn't be happier.
So reach out to me at First Lending Solutions so I can help you get started.
You can contact Defina Miller with First Lending Solutions at 951-973-0123, definamillermortgage.com.
I love how New School is able to help me greatly with my career.
Because they actually have experience working in the field. The greatest thing about New School is the fact that there are so many different disciplines, which allows you to really understand and get a good insight into different types of design. And I think it's that whole changing mindset of what design can really do for a city, and this is kind of the place to be.
This environment cultivates creative thinking.
Real Men of Real Estate with Steve Matley, construction manager and real estate developer, business owner, and educator.
Did you know that right now there's 22,000 units deficit?
Tunde Ogunwale, real estate development professional, Naval Academy grad, and veteran with a deep understanding of the public sector process.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Brian Fox, real estate expert and investor, dedicated to helping hundreds of clients make money in real estate every year.
There's so much housing going in.
The builders are begging for more land.
Future company can come in, lease up space to employ those people who are living in the homes.
We have to put the housing in place.
They either have to have houses.
They want to make sure that there's a strong employment.
Logistics centers, things like information hubs. We are a shipping economy now. There's economies all over the country where their prices are doubling and tripling.
Welcome back to International Wealth Builders Association Radio, sponsored by Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host today, Steve Matley, and we are talking about different types of real estate investing. We're going through very quickly. I said it's a fire hose approach to it, but just a real quick overview of different types of things you can get into. And before the break, we talked about early on the typical types of investment projects. Then we talked about more advanced. And right before the break, I listed out several of the very expert level kind of big stuff that is out there. So the problem with, there's a lot of upsides to it that I went through right before the break. So here's the downsides to it, why people don't do it more often. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of capital. Most of us don't have, millions, tens of millions sitting around just waiting to do a project, or even millions if you get into the big stuff. It's very high equity to loan ratios. If you're going to do land and develop from the ground up, you don't just you do your VA loan with $1 down. You don't get your 3% FHA loan or even your 20% typical. Those type of projects, you're going to have at least 50% down before you can even look at a loan. And most lenders don't really like living on land. It may require personal guarantees. Personal guarantees to do construction loans and those type of things. What that means is you've given the lender, usually a bank or institution, private lender, whoever you go to, you've given them permission to go past your property and past the entity the property's held in and go into your personal assets to make good on a loan if you default. That means your house, your car, your kid's college fund, your retirement, grandma's china, whatever they got. So that's a problem for a lot of people. And then qualifying for those loans will be difficult for a lot of people. There's expertise required to manage very complex projects. And most of us aren't going to be in a position where we know the legal, we know the land planning, urban planning use of it, land use. We don't know the construction management side of it, and the architecture, and the engineering, and the finance. There's a lot of disciplines that take a lifetime to really master that nobody can really put their head around. So most individual people don't get involved in these type of projects. There is potential liability if you're building. If you're actually going to do construction, there's liability because of injuries from the construction site and injuries to the general public because of construction activities. Also, defective construction is a problem. So there's a lot of liability for building things, and there's potential for very much higher risk. So these come with a very high level of risk, but a huge amount of reward, which is why they're done. And most of us would think, well, I'll never really get involved in those kind of projects. That's for big operations and big companies. Well, the truth is you can through certain structures. I'm going to talk to you how to overcome some of those barriers, what we do. And for me, there's three ways to deal with risk. You either accept the risk, or you avoid the risk, or you transfer the risk to someone else, or you do some combination thereof. So for us, if we can avoid risk, we'll do it. So for example, the risk of doing construction, the defect, the injuries, those kind of things, we don't build. Now, I'm a construction manager by trade. I've been doing that for years. I teach in a college. I run construction management degree programs. But personally, I try to avoid doing construction if we can help it, unless we can find ways to mitigate risk. And the reason is because, one, I don't have construction loans out there, and I don't have the liability for construction. So that's one way that you can mitigate the risk, is just don't do the building part of it. Let someone else do that. The significant capital. Well, you can do what they call syndications, which is where you invest, or REITs, those kind of things. You invest a small amount of money and join with a large group of people that all have a small amount of money. And together it becomes a large amount of money. And then you can be a part of these larger projects and participate in those. You're sharing your capital with other people. And of course, you're going to share the upside with them. The expertise. Nobody's going to learn everything. I've been in this industry for many decades, and most people would consider me an expert, but there's probably a lot more I don't know than I do know, because that's the nature of the world we live in. There's just an infinite ocean of information out there, and none of us can hold more than a thimbleful of that. So you want to invest in projects that are run by experts that have experience. They have a track record. The personal guarantees, now, I know that I'm going to get pushback on this from a lot of people. I don't do them. Our company doesn't do those. And I know that leaves a lot of money on the table, because we could do those if we were doing the building and go to the next steps, the development and stuff. But we just decided not to, because of that risk. And we're okay leaving money on the table and taking a good chunk up front and leaving the rest for other people. And the higher risk, well, all these things I've talked about, there's strategies to mitigate a lot of the risk. There's still going to be some risk, which I'll go through later. There is risk in everything, or there wouldn't be any upside to it. I have people ask me sometimes, they say, are there guarantees in these projects? Yeah, the guarantee is there's no guarantees because we don't control the universe. Anything can happen. Anybody that tells you that they predicted what was going to happen in March of 2020 is lying to you. Nobody can see what was going to happen with the pandemic and the shutdown. We just don't know those things. So there's always risk in everything. So one thing we do, our option to mitigate risk is to do what we call land flips. And the reason is we don't build. We don't have the construction loans. We don't have the construction risk. We do them in syndication where we pool other people's resources with us. And we are not, the land itself doesn't change, but legally it does. It becomes a much more valuable piece of land. It's value add, but physically nothing changed. It all changed legally. So these are entitlement projects. So we acquire land, we get it entitled legally. Entitlement is getting permission from the local agency having jurisdiction to do what you need to on that property. And then we're going to sell that when we're done on the backside with its approvals. It doesn't work everywhere. It works in California, and it works in all the markets where Californians are moving to, because those are expanding and building markets. Honestly, our market study approach is, where do the Californians and the New Yorkers all move to? That's where we move to, because those are growing areas. In California, actually, there's a big upside because of that arduous process. It's very difficult to get things done in this realm. But if you have the money and the patience, there's a lot of value in it, because most of the builders and developers have someone else to do that for them. So we're going to, what we do is we buy, let's say, fallow agricultural land. We buy a piece of land that had farming on it at one time. It's empty, but it's in an air path of growth. There's homes around it. There's buildings around it. It's an infill type deal. And maybe it's still 30, 50, 70 acres or more. Then we go through the legal process of turning 50 acres of land that you can have maybe 2 homes on and some crops, to land that has 350 home sites that can be sold off. Each of those individual sites can be sold out independently, so a builder can build homes and sell those. And you can do these as an individual, or you can do these corporately. We find it's better to do them as a group to pool money and expertise and the work that's required. That's why most of these are done by companies and firms. Different structures we can go through. So the process is, you have to go find the land, then you have to put together a project structure. You have to do the entitlement process, sell the land, and then wind down the project and share the proceeds. So the land acquisition side of it, essentially we have to profile the project. So what does that mean, profiling the project? Well, that means that we look at it and say, where is it? And is that area a place that wants this kind of project or doesn't want this kind of project? Is it on land? Is zoned for this? Or is there a general plan that says it could be zoned for this? Because we don't want to fight the local community. We want to do what they want, not force something on them that they don't want. What's the market? If we did this, would anybody buy this? Are there utilities nearby? I don't want to run 5 miles of trench down the street looking for the sewer. It needs to be close by. So sewer, water, power, communications, those type of things. Access to it, we don't want landlocked. We have to make sure there's access onto the major street, preferably in at least 2 locations. Topography, vertical land is being built in some of the urban areas because it's all that's left. But most areas, if you get more of the flat, if it's a flat with a little bit of slope, you want enough drainage on there. But a little slightly sloping land is best. Is there a lot of rocks, those kind of things out there, hazardous materials, that kind of stuff? You want to look for all that stuff. And then community amenities. We don't want to build these in the middle of nowhere. We want to build these where people move into the homes. There's schools, there's shopping, there's parks, there's youth leagues, there's senior centers, there's all the stuff that people medical, all that kind of stuff. So that's how we do that. We profile the property, and then we contact the owners. We almost never buy anything that's listed. We have a army of people who go out and find land for us and refer it to us. And when we contact the owners, we can find that information by running title reports and those kind of things, and we just put it into escrow if we can work a deal out. We have to run the title background and those kind of things, and we need to negotiate the purchase. Now, the deal on our deal is it's not so much about the money, as long as it's somewhat reasonable. We'll pay the owner whatever they want, or even a little more. as long as it's within reason, if they'll give us the terms. So understand this when you get into real estate. The terms are more important in most cases than the money. The money can be, if you have the right terms, you can make up any shortage. You pay way too much for it. Obviously, if you pay way too much, you're never going to recover it. But within reason, you can give a seller their price if they give you the terms. For example, we'll put very long escrows. That seems weird, doesn't it? Escrows that go for 2 years plus. Why would we do that? Well, I don't need all the money to buy the land up front. I just need to put it in escrow and service the escrow, give them some deposit money, and then do the entitlement. And then I will close at the end of that, a year and a half, 2 years later, if that's how long it takes me to get those entitlements. Why? Well, because I didn't have to raise $4 million up front to do this. I only had to raise, say, $500,000 to do this. And then I'm going to sell it at the back end. So that money from the seller is passing through going to the underlying, the buyer is pay me and I'm going to pay the seller. So that it's kind of a double-ended deal. And that's not always the way it works. Sometimes you have to buy it up front, especially if it's very long-term development, you have to buy it up front, but it's a different model. So I can do that. If I get the terms, I can make more money on the project. I can't get the terms, I have to refigure that I'm price. I can do assignable contracts where I can sell the contract instead of selling the land. And that sounds weird too. Again, that's a little more advanced discussion. That will be another show. And I make it worth their while. I make sure that I give them money that if we left in that time, if we had an escrow for say 9 months and then we decided we're not doing this, they keep the money we gave them. So guess what? They still have the land and they got the money we gave them because they're owed that. They're owed that because we kept their land off the market while we were working on it. And if we drop out, they're owed that. So generally, that's how we work that. We have a period of time where we can go through and do our due diligence and our feasibility studies. Once we open the escrow, we're going to immediately get some soils and environmental research done and zoning and those kind of things. And that leads us to the next step, which is putting the project's structure together. So when we put the project structure together, we're usually going to use an LLC. It's going to be a syndication. Syndication means you put together like an LLC and then a bunch of, again, as I said, a bunch of people with small amounts of money pool together their resources to create a larger pot of money to do it. We do it under 506B, which is a rule under Regulation B of the SEC. That sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, I know. All that means is there's a set of rules that we follow, and the set of rules says we know all of our investors. We don't publicly advertise our projects. So I say on this, I'm just explaining how we're doing it. I'm not pitching or selling anything at all. I'm just telling you this is how it works because I want to know every one of my investors. But we don't publicly advertise. We know all investors. We're limited to the number of non-accredited investors versus accredited investors. That means their net worth determines that. Other types of structures, you have to have all accredited investors. But we are a limited number we can have. There's certain regulations that we have to stick to. And we like it that way. It keeps it really simple. We form an LLC, we get a tax ID number for that, open a bank account, put together a investor package, which has a budget summary, pro forma, executive summary. It's got a market study, maybe it's got a management team background, so you know who you're dealing with, and other information. And then essentially I meet personally with almost every investor that comes in. I talk with them personally with my partners. So that's our project structure to get it up and running and get the money into it. And then we will do the entitlements. I think we need to take another break right now. So when we come back, I'm going to walk through the last 2 steps in this process and then talk a little bit about how you could get involved in something like this if you were so inclined. This is Steve Matley on International Wealth Builders Radio by Real Men of Real Estate.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
The toughest part in the lending process is patience. Like I tell all my clients, once you get those keys in hand, it'll all be worth it.
Everything that they said they were going to do, they did. I saved so much money working with First Lending Solutions. I love my new house. I couldn't be happier.
So reach out to me at First Lending Solutions so I can help you get started.
You can contact Defina Miller with First Lending Solutions at 951-973-0123, definamillermortgage.com.
I love how New School is able to help me greatly with my career.
Because they actually have experience working in the field. The greatest thing about New School is the fact that there are so many different disciplines, which allows you to really understand and get a good insight into different types of design. And I think it's that whole changing mindset of what design can really do for a city, and this is kind of the place to be.
This environment cultivates creative thinking.
Real Men of Real Estate with Steve Matley, construction manager and real estate developer, business owner, and educator.
Did you know that right now there's 22,000 units deficit?
Tunde Ogunwale, real estate development professional, Naval Academy grad, and veteran with a deep understanding of the public sector process.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Brian Fox, real estate expert and investor, dedicated to helping hundreds of clients make money in real estate every year.
There's so much housing going in.
The builders are begging for more land.
Future company can come in, lease up space to employ those people who are living in the homes.
We have to put the housing in place.
They either have to have houses.
They want to make sure that there's a strong employment.
Logistics centers, things like information hubs. We are a shipping economy now. There's economies all over the country where their prices are doubling and tripling.
Welcome back to International Wealth Builders Radio. This is by Real Men of Real Estate. I'm your host, Steve Matley. This is our last segment. We're going to wrap up our discussion on different types of real estate investing and our quick dive into land flipping. Before I move on, I want to let you know that if you contact International Wealth Builders Association, you can go to internationalwealthbuildersassociation.com, all spelled out, no dots, no capitals, no dashes, no spaces. internationalwealthbuildersassociation.com. You can find their website, or you can go to email membership@iwba-us.com. membership@iwba-us.com. The International Wealth Builders Association does do in-person meetings. They do have resources and connections, and you can find a lot of information about some of the things I'm talking about here and other types of real estate investing projects that you may have an interest in. So when we left off, we were talking about getting into the step of how do you do the actual entitlement. Entitlement in California, we have what's called CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, which is frankly, very difficult and arduous to get through. And the upside to that is that this controls what goes on next door to you. So you don't have unsuitable type projects going in next door. It gives you some control over what your neighbors do. The downside is it's very arduous, expensive, it takes a long time. It can get ridiculous sometimes. Plus and minus to both. Nationally, there's what they call NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, which tends to guide a lot of states that don't have their own. Once you in California, NEPA is overshadowed. It's a lot more strict. So then we follow those guidelines. We have an agency having jurisdiction, which is the county or the city that approves it. We follow their zoning and their general plan guidelines, their processes and their policies. We pay the fees. We go through a public hearing process, and then we do whatever they ask us to do. They want us to form a facilities district or HOA or revitalization district or something. We'll do that. With the other property owners around usually. Consultants, we use as civil engineers, geotechnical engineers, soils, environmental engineers, market study, and then sometimes specialty engineers, noise, traffic, cultural, archaeological, biological, paleontological, finance, hydrology, land planning, all kinds of different consultants that are needed depending on the project. We go through that process and we'll get what's known as a approved tentative map or tentative plat map. depending on the jurisdiction you're in. If it's commercial, it's more of a plat. Once we're done with that, then we sell it. We sell the land with all of its approvals. We sell it commercial by the square foot, by residential, we sell it by the lot with a certain value that we've agreed to with the buyer who's going to build the homes. And we have all the accounting and budgets to work with that. You'll need expert help with that part of it, which is why it's good to partner with other people. And then we wind it down. Once we sell it, we pay off whatever balance of the purchase price, any outstanding invoices we have, return the original capital to the investors, figure out what the profit is left over and split it according to the agreement we have with the investors percentage. And those generally tend to be long-term capital. So the land really doesn't look any different from the day we get it to the day we get rid of it, except legally it changes from a single or one or two big parcels to, say, several hundred smaller parcels. And then the builder will come in and build the homes, build those streets, do the infrastructure. Are there risks to this? Absolutely. There's risk to everything. But I already talked about some of the risk and how we mitigate the stuff as far as construction of those things. But there are risks, especially in places like California, can be relatively long periods of time to get these approvals, very long, especially in the coastal counties. So you have to make sure you're capitalized to the point that you can weather that time frame before you get the upside on the back end. There's no guarantee you're going to get the zoning you want. That's why you do your due diligence and talk with the people that are going to be in charge of that, talk with consultants and with the local public agencies to make sure that this is something that they want and will approve. The timing can be dependent upon market conditions. So this is something you don't want to get into as the market is dropping, but you do want to get into it when the market is doing pretty well. I'm going to talk about if the market's dropping or not in a second here. And it can be a very long time if you miss the market. If you get into this and then, the people I know that got into these deals in 2006, they were into these deals for a long time because when the market dropped, they had to hold on to them before lose them. And public hearing process can be unpredictable. That's just what it is. The upside, a lot of money you can make in these things if you have the expertise and the capital to get them going. You can build a sustainable portfolio with these things over time. Use the money that you get from these slips to buy that long-term hold property, and you don't have the risk from building or developing. Here's the benefits to me, compared to other even easier projects. No renters, no repairs, no evictions, no permits, no inspections, no heavy labor, no contractors, no property tax or insurance, because you do it while it's in escrow. No demolition, no trash outs, no landscaping, no owner's liability, no neighbor complaints, no rent collections, no foreclosures, no vacancies. All those things are not an issue when we're doing these kind of projects. The reason people don't is because of lack of knowledge, fear of the unknown. They listen to the uninformed. They listen to somebody whose brother-in-law's cousins, co-workers, ex-wives, kid knew somebody who lost their shirt in one of these deals, like that. Or maybe they got into one of these deals and didn't fully vet it, and it didn't go in somewhere because they got into something that was over their head. It's something they're not familiar with. It's not on TV. Thank goodness it's not on TV. That would ruin everything. So is it a good time? Well, I would suggest that you go to, say, the San Diego Impact Real Estate Investor Network or the SDCIA meetings and listen to Patrick Capel, who really talks about Southern California real estate better than anybody I know. Very bullish on it right now for a lot of reasons. We are not in 2004, 5, 6 again. We're not in there. The debt's not at the same level. We still have a huge gap. So how can you do this? You can invest if you have some money. You can use your self-directed IRA money or HSA money. You can refer investors to projects and maybe get referral fees off of that. You can take a piece of empty property you have and joint venture it if it's suitable. You can help somebody buy land. There's all kinds of things you can do. So I want to wrap this up real quick with saying this is International Wealth Builders Radio.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
You've heard AM, you've heard FM. Now, tune into